which allows us to more efficiently get breakfast out of the cafeteria with a grab and go model. At the middle school, sometimes we have excess of 200 kids a morning getting breakfast, which can jam up the schedule a little bit. So anything we can do to move them faster through that process is good for us.
Christy, how close are we to getting the universal free meals based on our population of poverty levels?
I have not looked at that yet. I believe it's in April when the state will certify to say use these numbers to analyze that program. So I will be bringing that back to the board. I have to refresh my memory what data set we look at, but it's more in the spring.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so I wanted to give you an update on some of our current revenue sources because that helps us project for the next fiscal year. So one of the big chunks of revenue that we receive is our current real estate tax. So with this chart, what it shows you is every time that there's a different color, it represents a different month. So the first set of blue bars is the current year or current July, and then the past 2 Julys. So you can see that our real estate that's collected can fluctuate from month to month. It's not like growing every year, it's just a fluctuation. So that's why I like to look at the cumulative totals that you can see down below. So from July of 23 to December of 2023, we have collected 27.7 million of our current real estate taxes. We actually budgeted about 28 million. So we are a little bit below our budget. However, we are, that percentage there that you see there, that 5.75%, we are about 6% above where we were last year at this time. So our real estate revenue is growing.
Chrissy, for the board and folks listening, we would be trending towards our budget number, though, correct, of 28?
We're probably not going to hit it because usually we don't receive much in after December. I didn't pull in January's yet, but you can see on the slide that you do not see any bars after that because after January, we turn our real estate over to the county to collect it as delinquent. Okay. So if we don't get it in current, hopefully we'll get it in delinquent. So what hopefully we see is that our delinquent was under budgeted, but will come in over budget. If that makes sense, you kind of look at them together.
It's a terrible thing to hope for, but
yeah. Looking at our next revenue source that has been ever changing in the last few years, has not been consistent, is our realty transfer tax. And again, this is the same thing as the real estate. It's by month, so you can see the last 3 months of every fiscal year, or of the last 3 fiscal years. So July's revenue, you see nothing because we don't start collecting that into August. And then June's is actually a compilation of, it would be, because it's a month behind, so it would actually be a compilation of May and June's. So for the realty transfer tax, historically we have trended around about $500,000. The last couple years, we've brought in more realty transfer tax than we anticipated. We had some large warehouses that actually changed hands that brought us in that big spike that you see in December of 2021. So you can see that year through December of 2021, we received in about 1.4 million, but that is not routine. That's not what we usually see year over year. And then in from July of 22 to December of 22, we collected about 391,000. And then for this year to date, we collected about 411,000. So we're about 5.2% above where we were last year. And you can see that we budgeted 490,000. So most likely, don't have a crystal ball, but I'm thinking we will definitely meet our budget and maybe exceed our budget for this year. The last revenue I wanted to review with you tonight for the current fiscal year is our earned income tax. So our earned income tax has been certainly growing year over year. And so every year, since it seems to be growing, I do put a little bit of extra money into our budget. I don't always go to what we got the previous year, just because there could be a potential if there would be a massive group like the baby boomers that would retire all at one time, then we could actually see a drop in our earned income. So you can see that for the current fiscal year, we budgeted $6 million for earned income. To date, we received $3 million, or actually 4.6% below where we were last year at this time. Last year at this time, we had collected in about 3.3 million. And then the July to December before, we had collected in 2.9 million. But I believe we are on track to be at 6 million or above for 23-24. So this chart, before we get into the actual numbers, I wanted to provide you with our historical revenue so you can see how it has grown over the years. I went back to the 2007-2008 fiscal year. The blue line represents all of our local revenues. The orange line represents all of our state revenues, and the gray line represents all of our federal revenues. So you can see that our local revenues have grown over the last few years. You can see the spike here in the last couple years, and that's one of the reasons is we've been having economic growth in our district, and also the Act 1 index has been higher than traditional years. So when we increase taxes to the index or closer to the index, that has brought in more revenue for the district. And then you'll also see the spike in the orange line for the state. As you recall, the last 2 fiscal years we've received in historical state funding. So that is the reason for that increase. And then on the gray line, I actually started my career in school business right about this time frame. So back in 2009, 10, 11, you'll see a spike in federal revenue. If you remember, the state, the federal government had passed the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009. That was President Obama's initiative to save jobs and stop economic deterioration. So school districts got money to help support their budgets. And then, of course, it fell back to normal. And then you see the spike here in the last few fiscal years, and that's our ESSER money that we received to help with COVID. So I'm not going to go over all of them, but if you're just curious what does make up local revenues, what makes up state revenues, and what makes up our federal revenues, here's a chart. It's not all inclusive. I'm not going to read them to you, but you can see when I talk about local revenues, you can see kind of what's included, and again, what's in our state and what's in our federal. If you wanted to look at the all-inclusive list, attached to the agenda is a detailed list of our revenues with the historical and projected dollar amounts that you could see in the chart that I provided. So the actual dollar figures are there for you to reference as well. So I just wanted to highlight, if there is no tax increase in the 24 fiscal year, I wanted to show you what makes up the majority of our revenues, and you can see that is our local revenues. Our budget is made up of 59% of local revenues, 39% of state, and 2% of our budget are federal revenues. So to break that down even further, how much of our local revenues, like what's supporting our local revenues, 75% of our local revenues come from our current real estate taxes. The 17% is our current earned income tax, and then the other ones that you see listed on there fall at or below 2%. I'm not going to read through them, but again, our biggest local revenue drivers are our current real estate taxes and our earned income tax. In terms of state revenues, our basic education funding represents 54% of our state revenues. Our reimbursement that we get from the state for our retirement contributions represents 20% of our state revenues, and our special education revenues represent 9% of our total state revenues. And again, I'm not going to read all the other ones there, but the other ones on the list fall either 5% or below of our state revenues. And then our federal revenues, once we take the ESSER money away, currently consist of Title I, Title II, and Title IV. And of course, Title I is our biggest pot at 82%. So now here's where I'm going to get a little bit in the nuts and bolts of the actual revenue numbers. So I provided you with our 22-23 actual revenues, that's column 1. Again, by these high-level buckets, the local, state, and federal. And then you can see what our 23-24 budget was, as well as what we are projecting at this point for 24-25. So as you can see, our local revenues are increasing by about 896,000 from the 23-24 budget. Keep in mind the local revenues, I do not have included any tax increases. That is noted below in red. If the board should so choose to raise taxes to the index, that would give us about $2.9 million that we could add to that line item. So what makes up the 896,000 in local revenues? We have seen an increase in our assessed value property growth. So 460,000 of that is our current real estate tax revenues for property assessed value growth. I increased our EIT revenue by about 200,000 because that continues to trend upward. We received an increase in IDEA of 130,000, so I put in what we got for the current fiscal year, hoping that we continue to get that. And our realty transfer tax, I did bump that up this year because it has been trending and we continue to see revenue growth, but I don't believe that we can always put that amount in there, but I did bump it up for next fiscal year by about 200,000. And then for our state revenues, you can see that we're budgeting an increase of about $500,000. And that $500,000 is made up of the majority of the basic education, special education funding. So what I did is I put in the amount that we are to receive this year in our basic and special education funding. Other than that, it does not include any new money. It just puts us level to what we're going to receive in the current fiscal year. And then you'll see that our federal revenues fell by about $2.9 million, and that's the removal of the ESSER revenue. And then down below, for your information, I have in here that you can see if there's no real estate tax, and then if there's a real estate tax increase to the index, what that looks like for our millage rates. But before we get down to that, I will just start on the first line shows our collection rate. So as part of the budget process, when we're budgeting for current real estate tax revenues, you have to budget a collection rate because we certainly do not receive 100% of the bills that we send out. Unfortunately, some of them have to be turned over for delinquent. So historically, over the last 15 years, our collection rate has hovered around 95%. It's actually, when I average it, it's 95.88%. So I kept the budget at a 95% collection rate for our current real estate tax revenues. And then you can see below, I wanted to show that assessed revenue growth that I had spoke about earlier, the 460,000 that I placed up above in the local revenue line items. You can see that our Cumberland County assessed values from last budget to this budget, our Cumberland County went from about 1.43 billion to about 1.45 billion, or an increase of $24 million in assessed value. Franklin County is also growing. You can see that our assessed value was about 108 million in 23-24, and that's currently at 115 million approximately, based on the January assessed value reports that I received from the county. So Franklin County has gone up about 6.5 million in assessed value. And then we always like to talk about this equalization of multi-counties, being in a multi-county school district. So the STEB market value percentages between the counties, you can see that for the 23-24 budget, our Cumberland County STEB percent was about 63.96%, and for Franklin County, it was about 36%. However, this is the first year that I've seen the steepest, change between the two counties. You can see the Cumberland County STEB value is actually decreasing to 60%, and the Franklin County STEB value is increasing to 39.8%.
Could you talk a little bit about STEB? What is STEB?
I'm sorry. So I like to talk in acronyms. So the STEB is stands for State Tax Equalization Board. So they actually set the STEB rates when you sit in a multi-county school district of how you equalize your millage rates. I am not the expert in it. They are part of this whole equalization, and that's where these percentages come from.
So just for the board to understand, Christy, the top part is kind of like a snapshot, like a big 30,000, no real changes. We know we're getting those money. We know we're losing that money. That's like that 1.5 is the hole that we have from the removal of the ESSER's money. And then the 80, 89, 6 and the 499 are guaranteed increases we know we're getting from those levels. Is that accurate?
I wouldn't say guaranteed, but I feel pretty confident looking at like historical values. You know, obviously earned income could go down, but it has been trending up. So based on trends, I feel pretty positive about it, but it's definitely not guaranteed.
Okay, so I mean, just to kind of for understanding, like that's a vanilla 30,000 foot view with no tax increase, and
No
some
new state dollars.
no new state dollars, some guesses on your part, and then the known factor of the the 2.9 federal ESSERS money kind of going away. Okay.
Correct. And then we'll show you some scenarios later on in the presentation, you know, like different tax increases and, you know, governor's proposal and kind of what that looks like to date. And then just down below, you can.
I think there's a question.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
So, well, I guess it's going on in both counties now. I heard Franklin forever, and now I start hearing like stuff about Cumberland about doing like reappraisals of stuff, of properties.
So
How does that impact us potentially?
I am not going to speak to that because I am not the expert. I could certainly ask PASBO to come here, but I will tell you that the closer your assessed value is by county, the less, how do I want to say, like this varying of the step value between counties.
The reason I ask is because like in Franklin County, I believe there hasn't been like a reassessment for like,
1960.
yeah, so it's been forever. So like it's hot topic. Like I know our borough council has agreed to go with a coalition of some other boroughs to support that. So I was just wondering, like, seems like it's support, if they are interested, so it seems to support them with their funding. So I would just make the,
Yeah, so it
completely
would definitely
uneducated guess,
help
it
with the equalization of mills. I believe that it would get us closer and we wouldn't have this greatest divide but there's other factors than just the county assessments in that whole step factor. There's other changes that need to take place at the state level that PASBO is trying to advocate for.
okay. Thank you.
So it might not mean more money for us necessarily.
Correct. It might just be equalizing your counties. So then you can see what the current millage rate is for Cumberland County. It's currently at 13.482, and Franklin County's millage rate is currently at 100.0525. The reason why I like to point this out is I say this is no tax increase. It is no tax increase. However, because of this equalization, you will see if we did not raise taxes at all, Cumberland County's millage rate is going to go down to 12.8418, and Franklin County's is going to go up to 107.6144. So, yes, we are not bringing in any more real estate tax revenue. However, Cumberland County would see a decrease in their tax bill, and Franklin County is going to see an increase in their tax bill to equal out the millage rates. So even though you say no new tax increase, if that would happen and somebody gets their bill, somebody in Franklin County is going to be like, well, you told me no new tax increase. No, but their tax bill did go up because of the whole equalization of the millage rates
And
between the two
we
counties.
don't have control over that.
We
That is
don't.
nothing this board can do about that. That is just a function of being in two counties, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and who, not that you need to know, how is that determined? Who decides that?
That State Tax Equalization Board.
Okay, so someone else decided this. Okay.
Yeah, so we are not generating any new revenue, but again, if you would not increase taxes at all, Cumberland County is going to go down and Franklin County is going to go up.
Would that be a net wash, basically, then, Christie?
Yes, that's what the equalization does. Okay, so this kind of shows it a little bit. Oh, no, not this one. I have a different one to show you. So this actually shows our assessed values over the last about 12 years. So you can see it kind of the blue line is Cumberland County and the orange line is Franklin County. So you can see Franklin County isn't growing quite as big as Cumberland County, But we are seeing growth in both counties, and the values are down the side if you just wanted to see what they equated to. But I wanted to share with you that we are continuing to see real estate growth in this school district. Okay, now this is a slide. So historically, it has stayed fairly level, the STEB market values, but this year is where you can really see Franklin County spikes and Cumberland County STEB value goes down, which plays into the part, even if you don't increase taxes, if Franklin County is going to see an increase in their tax bill and Cumberland County will see a decrease in theirs. And then there's the history of the percentage values for the STEB. Okay, so wanted to throw this in here. I like to always just show a comparison of where we are at to our local school districts. So you can see Shippensburg is in the like pink line. You can see this is comparing our 22-23 tax millage rates and our 23-24 tax millage rates. So you can see in Cumberland County, this is just our Cumberland County schools except West Shore, who sits in both. You can see we rank third from the bottom in terms of our millage rate. You can see the schools that have higher millage rates than us. And then down below is our Franklin County schools. And you can see, except for Fayette Meadow, also sits in a split county, Perry County. We are next to the lowest on the list of our millage rate in terms of our Franklin County schools. So I wanted to point out that if these schools did not raise taxes at all in 24-25, but we did, our tax rate for Cumberland County, our millage rate would be 14.1447. So that would only bump us up above West Shore. So again, if they don't raise taxes at all, we're still in like the bottom group of our peers in Cumberland County.
So just again, for everyone's edification, so what does being at the bottom of these lists mean for us in reality?
So in reality, that's that chart that we showed you a while back. By not going to the index, we have lost out on real estate tax revenue. And of course, it's cumulative. So you can see our other schools have continued to increase their tax rates.
So I've had folks that I work with who have moved to Shippensburg because of those numbers, because they've left areas like Greencastle and Chambersburg and moved a couple miles and have paid much less for their tax to the schools.
But then you can also say, like when you compare us to other schools, then look at our facilities, look at our staffing.
Yeah, and with that, I would say that we've probably seen a massive uptick in students as well because of stuff like that.
I'm sure it's a factor for some families, for sure. I think you also have to look at assessed value. I mean, the property and millage rate in Cumberland Valley, for every bit they go up, that piece of the pie, their pie is pretty rich, rich in texture. Ours is maybe not as filling.
Right. And then,
You're saying that even if we raise to the index, we would still, instead of being third from the bottom, we would be fourth from the bottom.
that's also assuming that none of those school districts raise taxes either.
they don't change.
So if they would raise taxes, we might stay where we're at. We may drop. But again, I just wanted to point out, like, if they don't raise taxes at all, and we do, we only move up one in the Cumberland County side. In the Franklin County side, we would only move up one as well. That's if any of these school districts did not increase their millage rates. Our Franklin County millage rate going to the index would be 118.5326. So again, that would bump us up above Waynesboro, but we would still be below Greencastle.
So again, big picturing it from a pulled out 30,000 foot view, the tax burden for Shippensburg's is we're in the bottom third for tax burden on district residents.
Correct.
Okay.
But if you don't raise to the index, you never get that back.
Don't.
So you're always going to be
Behind.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most apt observation, because of, I think, our past as Christy said, that's, why we're where we are in those charts.
Okay, so I put a few scenarios together that we can continue to look at as we move down through the budget process. So this is, I've showed you this before. If the board would decide to increase taxes to the index, what does it look like on our taxpayers? So I always focus on the median assessed value. That is, again, like the red or pink box. But I also give you different scenarios because we also know that not everybody's house is in the median assessed value. But just going to highlight those just for comparison. So if we went to the index, what would that look for Cumberland County residents? On a median assessed value of $174,200, they would see an annual increase in their tax bill of about $115.04 or per month cost of $9.62. On the Franklin County side, their median assessed value is $19,870. And so what that would do to them is, again, because of the step value going up in this county, their annual cost would be $367.20. They'd see their tax bill go up, or an additional monthly cost of $30.60.
And so, Chrissy, just so I can get my head around it, when you in the pink box, that assessed value is the value, the median value of the home
In Shippensburg School District.
Right. For Cumberland County, that's $174,000. Because of that lack of the assessments from 1960, that median is $20,000. Yeah.
So the point legal I was talking about earlier, where I think it's Chambersburg and Waynesboro and Shippensburg have been talking about trying to get those values updated. Franklin County taxpayers wouldn't be facing this sort of unpredictability in these equalization
My understanding
things.
is I'm not the expert, my understanding is your assessed values are closer, then you're not going to have those big swings between the two counties when you're trying to equalize the millage rate.
So those swings would go away for our Franklin County residents if Franklin County would reassess their
Well,
property.
not necessarily, because you have to remember Cumberland County reassessed in, I think, 2010. So theirs is starting to get pretty old.
Okay.
But it's certainly not
It's
1960.
better. Yes, right.
And I think to some point, Christy, correct me if I'm wrong, with the assessed value of the house, then are there other taxes that a homeowner would have to pay that's to their benefit? In Franklin County, their home values are not as big as it all just related to school tax.
So say that again. I'm so sorry.
I mean, what's the advantage of having a low assessed value? Is it only benefit you for school taxes?
Well, no, because the whole equalization of millage rates is saying if you took a house in Cumberland County and sat it in Franklin County, you should pay the same dollar value for that home in Franklin County. So the assessed value is lower, but their millage rate is higher.
Okay.
Equalize the dollar value of the tax
Gotcha.
bill.
Okay.
But on that number of Franklin County, I think, as I just told a couple years ago, when you look at that 19,000, that's not the value of that house and how they're
Right.
assessing that. They're doing a multiplication value to get it up to where the others are. It's a little deceiving when you look at that.
So in other words, they changed. Who controls the millage rate?
Well, we set the millage. You as the school board sets the millage rates, but the millage rates are driven out on a number of different things. Your collection rate, your assessed values, and then because we are in a split county, you have to take into that equalization, that step value.
So
So the state has a hand in ours because we are multi-county.
okay, so Franklin County is letting other factors determine their property values rather than going out and doing actual assessments. In other words, they're moving, the millage rate's getting moved instead of property values getting moved.
Correct.
Again, not a function of us.
Right.
So then I did a scenario that if you would increase taxes 75% to the index, you can see up top what the millage rates would be for each of the counties. And then in the upper right-hand corner box, I show you what the lost revenue would be if you only go to 75% of the index, which would be about $750,000 loss in revenue if you only go to 75%. So now what does that look like for our Cumberland County taxpayers? On the median assessed value, they would see an increase in their tax bill about $58.71, or a monthly cost of $4.89. Franklin County median assessed value, they would see their tax bill still go up $312.97, or a monthly increase of $26.08. At a 50% increase to the index, that would be estimated lost revenue of about $1.5 million. Cumberland County's tax bill, again on the median assessed value, would go up $1.95, or 16 cents per month. And Franklin County's would see an increase, again, a median assessed value of $258.73, or $21.56.
So, Chrissy, just to reiterate, that $1.499 million, that is an annual amount that will not be in our budget.
That is correct.
Okay.
So that's not just
It's not just 1 year, it's every year till time ends.
And then if you would do
Right.
a 25% increase to the index, that would be a lost revenue of about $2.2 million. And for our Cumberland County taxpayers, their annual tax bill would go down by about $54.79, or a reduction of $4.57 a month. On the median assessed value in Franklin County, their tax bill would go up $204.49, or a monthly cost of $17.04. Back up one. So then the last scenario I have is no tax increase. So if you do not increase taxes at all, it's about a $3 million lost revenue. You can see on the median assessed value in Cumberland County, their tax bill would go down about $111.52 a year, or a reduction of $9.29 a month. Franklin County, a median assessed value would see a tax increase of about $150.25, or $12.52 a month. And so then this slide, all I wanted to do for you was give you a really nice comparison so you don't have to flip between all the slides. So this just shows you the different 4 scenarios, what the millage rate would be for both counties. Based on I just only pulled in the assessed value, median assessed value, what that would look like in terms of annual tax increases. And then again, the lost real estate tax revenue value in each of those different scenarios. Okay, you've seen this before, so this is just, again, a historical look at our tax increases. You can see through the years, in the notes column, I have noted, like, if we went to the index, if there was no tax increase, if we went to a portion of the index. And then there was a request. I think this is what the requester was getting at, but I'm not 100% sure, so they can let me know if not. But on the last 2 columns, what I wanted to show you is based on the median assessed home value. Over the years, you can see from 2012-13 to the 23-24 fiscal year, our Cumberland County residents has paid an increase of $604.83 in, again, this is median assessed value only, in tax bills over those years. However, our Franklin County, because most of the time they have their tax bills went down or did not go up as much as our Cumberland County residents. From that same time period, Franklin County median assessed value residents only saw a tax increase of $118.95. That next line you see there, I just wanted to throw in, if we would increase taxes to the index from 2012 to 13 to include 24-25 tax increase to the index, our Cumberland County residents would pay an increase of $720.27 over that time period, and our Franklin County median assessed value residents would see an increase of $486.15 over that time period. Is there any questions on this slide?
That answered my question. I felt like, as a Franklin County resident, that I was getting off on the good side of this on a personal level, is what it seemed like. So $118 over like
a median assessed value. Remember,
Yeah.
that's just median assessed
Yeah.
value.
Okay. Thank you.
That's a big jump for you this year, though, to go from 118 to 486.
Okay, so now we're going to shift towards the expense side of things. And as we go through the budget presentations, for those of you who have been here, we will start and break down the expense into various budgets. So I always say the caveat, even though it says business administration, this is not all the business office. This is the catch-all where if it's not budgeted somewhere else, I budget for this. So it's not just, again, the business office spending all this kind of money. So you can see under the 300 categories, I didn't include everything, but I just wanted to highlight what are those expenses. So we have our legal services, our district physician and dentist, our tax collector payments, we pay local audit fees, our E-rate administration, our asset management, COBRA administration, and our GASB 75 evaluation. So in looking at those expenses, as of what I know to date, it looks like we need to budget for an increase of about $23,352 on our professional and technical services line item. That increase has to do with an increase in legal fees, because unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know how we want to look at it, our professional staff CBA expires June 30th of 2025. So we will actually start negotiations in December of 24 or January of 2025. So anytime that there's a negotiation year, we always pay more in legal fees. So I bumped that up to include the negotiation, our legal fees for our solicitor. And then, so that was $20,000, and then the rest of the $3,352 are just small increases in those other expense categories. You'll see that the 400 line item, purchase property services, went down. That is because I had saw that we were actually budgeting insurance, our general liability, some of our general liability under the 400s, and they should have been budgeted under 500s. Hence the reason why, one of the reasons why the 500s going up. So I just shifted the expense to actually be coded to the appropriate place. So the 500 line item, the other purchase services. Let me go back. So under the 400 object code, that consists of our district-wide copier leases, rental of maintenance of equipment, and repairs and maintenance on equipment. And then under the 500 object code, that includes our FCCTC, our general property and liability insurances, tuition for the SHIP START program, the CAIU general operating budget, and communications/postage district-wide. So you can see I am projecting an increase in that line item of about $53,000. It's mainly made up of three things. We're seeing an increase in our general and property liability. It's projected at this point to go up about $15,000. We're also seeing an increase in our tax collection for EIT, LST, and our tax collectors as we continue to have more properties in the district. And we received a preliminary budget from the VOTEC, and based on this preliminary budget, they're showing an increase of $13,564. The VOTEC preliminary budget I did attach to the agenda manager if you wanted to look at it as well. When you pull that up, I just wanted to say, and I don't know if any of our representatives from the VOTEC will eventually go over this, but it sounds like the FCCTC is looking to apply for some of the facility grants as well to replace one of their roofs. And in doing so, there is a match of 25%. That 25% would have to be divvied among the schools that own the FCCTC. So if that would happen, if you recall a while back, we had to contribute money to some renovations that they made. So we would have to make that decision of either paying for it out of our fund balance or paying for it out of bond proceeds. But that will be a decision later down the road. They don't even know if they'll be awarded the grant, but I did wanted to give you that heads up.
But we should be rooting for them to get that grant.
Yes, yes.
Okay, just to be clear.
This is a totally random question, and it's probably not pertinent to this, but how many kids are at VOTEC? Or do we have?
I think we're 120 at least.
I was just curious.
Yeah,
That's-
I mean low 100s. I mean low to mid 100s.
And then you could see the supply budget is going down by $17,000. I did end up removing a contingency. The previous business administrator had always budgeted for a server for our business office software. Currently, we host, and we don't maintain our data here. It's maintained by the software company. But if we would ever want to host it, we would need our own server. So I figured, why carry that contingency anymore? If that would become a point in time where the software vendor would say you have to host your own data, I would say more like a one-time expense and approach it as maybe a fund balance item. So I removed that out as a reoccurring expense. So that brings the total business administration budget increase of about $48,762 at this point. Moving on is our utilities budget. So our utilities consist of our trash or disposal services, our electricity, our water and sewage. Communications is our telephone, our natural gas, and gasoline. So you can see that there is a pretty big increase in our utilities of about $83,000. Our electricity and natural gas, we are in a consortium. So those budgets come from our consortium broker. They look at our usage rate, our current contracted rates, and they give me the budgeted amounts for electric and natural gas. So then disposal services, water and sewage, and of course gasoline. Then I just take and I look at history. And history has shown that our disposal services has gone up. I was hoping that that would go down because that had went up in the past because with COVID, we were using styrofoam trays and we were having to dump our trash more frequently, but it has not went down. So I budgeted for that reoccurring expense at this point until we see a decline in that expense. Our water and sewage is going up a little bit as well, so I budgeted for an increase in that line item. Moving on, our debt service budget. This is our debt service projected for 24-25. Usually I know to the penny what our debt service will be, but we have not borrowed the series of 2024 yet. That is something with the recent board passage of the base bid of the construction projects. Once those come in and we start to borrow, we will have a borrowing that will most likely occur in 2024. So based on PFM, I used their estimates and plugged in the total payment for that bond borrow. So you can see there that in 24-25, I'm estimating debt service payments of about $2.6 million. We are continuing to budget level debt service payments from back in 1920 when our debt service payments dropped off to at $3.6 million. So that's again a difference of about $987,000. So if all other revenues and expenditures would come in as budgeted, we would actually be able to put that money into fund balance.
Chrissy, real quick, our next borrowing timeline, when will the board, when will that be before the board?
I'm not 100% sure. I can contact PFM and ask them, but I'm thinking they're waiting. We're gonna have to wait to see what the bids come in at.
Okay, so after the bid process is
I
when-
believe, but I will have to ask.
Okay.
It might be this construction draw time, so we might just need to get a call into PFM and maybe have SiteLogic on the call as
Okay.
well. And then we have the superintendent's budget. Mr. August is not asking for an increase, so his budget is staying level at $27,554, and it pays for stuff of like mileage reimbursements, conferences, general office supplies, subscriptions, membership dues and fees to professional organizations. And because we have an assistant superintendent, unfortunately we did not budget her any money in 23-24. So I said to her, can you please come up with what you think you need for 24-25? Obviously she also wants to be part of professional organizations and attend conferences. So you can see that we are requesting $7,700 for our assistant superintendent, again for travel, general office supplies, dues and fees, and going to conferences. Our human resources, they are asking for a small increase in their budget of $800, and they are actually shifting some money around. They're shifting some money from their advertisement budget and putting it down on their supply line item, and also increasing it about $800 to continue to do their district-wide appreciation for staff. Our technology budget, We are seeing an increase in our regular technology budget by about 141,000. If you recall, there was some new software that we bought throughout the fiscal year, and we would take it out of fund balance, and then we said that it would be put in the technology budget going forward. So some of that new software included PowerSchool predictive enrollment, iTunes upgrades, cybersecurity upgrades, network monitoring tools, and Google Education Plus. We're also seeing an increase in our existing software that has been budgeted. We are seeing an increase in our IU services, as well as a small increase in training and travel costs. Every year, Dr. Stevens is gracious enough to put a outlook together for capital technology projects. So at the top of this page, you can see for the current fiscal year 23-24, we had spent $668,600 out of fund balance for capital technology projects. For 24-25, Dr. Stevens is estimating $547,715 to be used out of the technology fund balance, or a decrease of $120,000 from the current fiscal year. So you can see down below, I'm not going to read all through them, but we're asking for the art lab to be replaced at the high school, the business lab, robotics, middle school, replacing one grade level of Chromebooks every year and the cases, and then some district-wide technology for our teachers, laptops, interactive panels, aging, secretary and nursing devices, network switches, again for a total of $547,715. We do currently have enough in assigned fund balance and capital technology projects to cover that. We have $749,301 in assigned fund balance. However, I do want to point out, if we do not begin to end our years with a surplus, then we won't have money to put back aside for future capital technology expenditures. You can see there Dr. Stevens' projections in capital technology expenditures for the next 5 years. So it ranges from anywhere from $667,000 to about $1 million.
I do have a question. So the board, we had voted to eliminate the FID days. So one of the big reasons, I guess, for like the Chromebook replacements was so that students could continue to receive an education when we did not have school. Is there a way that we can kind of look at, like, if that's something that we're going to continue and eliminate some of the tech costs when it comes to replacing the Chromebooks to get?
We can absolutely look at it. I mean, for this budget, we do have to get on a cycle of replacements for devices, and we have to look at it from a elementary through high school perspective. But if we're going to move away from technology, I think we just need to consider all the ramifications of that, because so much of our teachers have invested, and computers are an integral part of the classroom at almost every single level. A lot of our programs that we use for remediation, like iReady and ARC, there are components that are on the computer. Some of our remediation programs are there as well. So they may not be things that we use every single day. They are things that we use often, especially at the elementary level. So we can take a look at it, but what I would say is, like, a lot of our programs are tied to those devices, and being able to have a kid do a diagnostic and work through some remediation programs on those devices at the elementary level. At the secondary level, I mean, they're just an integrated part of the learning at this point.
And do we have an update from the Hurley auction of what those technology pieces sold for?
I do not have that on. We can find out.
Okay, so moving on to our middle school athletics, there is a small increase of $20,000, $429 being requested. The reason you'll see on the next slide, I break out athletics separately at the high school level. They are also asking for an increase at the high school level of $100,059, and the reasonings for the increases are one and the same. So they're seeing an increase in the official pay, ambulance fees, game help, tournament fees, reconditioning of equipment, transportation. Of course, we renegotiated new fees with our transportation contractor, as well as I got one here, thank you. So they're also seeing an increase in the travel distance, increases in clinics and conference fees and uniforms.
We'll also see a bump because of our track needs, as we get that up and running. We'll have some additional traveling that we have to do to make that happen. The athletic committee, I believe, was briefed on the causes of those increases for both the middle school and the high school.
So again, I'm not going to reread it, but same justification for the increases. And you can see the different line items there, but overall asking for an increase of about $100,000. And I also want to share with the board, the athletics sit in its own fund, separate from the general fund. So they do accumulate a fund balance just like the general fund accumulates a fund balance. So I wanted to share with you what the fund balance was between both of those funds for the end of June 30th of 2022, as well as this past fiscal year, 6/30 of 2023. It did drop a little bit. If you remember, we did ask to use some of the fund balance for the swimming blocks replacement at the high school. But currently they have $149,303 sitting in fund balance. Transportation is our last budget area this evening that we're going to look at. You can see there that the transportation budget is going up by about $314,472. The majority of that increase is because they are projecting the need for 2 additional regular transportation bus routes, as well as increase in fuel costs for Heckmeyer's, Fries, and Boyo. Also, we've seen an increase in the McKinty-Vinto out of district placement transportation. There is a small increase for supply dues and fees, and under the 300 line item for professional and technical services, Randy would like to look at getting GPS software.
Just a reminder, the board, I found this out several years ago, some buses were trimmed from the transportation. With our growing student population, we were able to make it work. Randy and his staff were able to make our bus routes work, but some of those buses are pretty tight, and so these 2 buses helped alleviate some of those longer, more crowded routes, and allow us to lay out our routing a little bit easier. So we were able to kind of skate by this year by not adding those 2 into the budget, but at this point he was willing to make it work, but at this point he's requesting them for those reasons.
And then it happened twice, where like our contract with fuel, like there went so much and then we paid more. Is that correct?
I'm sorry.
So like our contract with, we had our main contract with Boyo, like we were set on a certain gas price, and then this is prior to you, Mr. August, being here, but I remember like as a board we had to decide that we were gonna, because fuel was through the roof.
Right.
And then it happened the next year as well because fuel was still higher than what it was. So is that built into this? Because I mean,
Yes.
gas prices are better, but they're still not good.
Right. I mean, we're always taking a guess at the amount of fuel that we're going to use and how much it's going to cost. And there's some contractual things built into those contracts where we try to help them out in order to get our kids where they need to be.
Okay, so that brings us to our updated budget summary. So I have one here where you can see we have projected revenues as of the last budget and finance meeting in January, so January 22nd. Now you can see what they are as of today. Like I went over with you, there are some there are some revenues that I believe we can increase, like EIT, like the growth in real estate tax value, like putting in what we're getting in state revenue for the current school year. So the first line item is in revenue. If there is no real estate tax increase, our revenue is projected at $63.9 million. If we increase taxes to the index, that would bring us in about $66.9 million. So our total expenditures, when I presented in January, we knew them to be a little over $68 million. They are now totaling $68,759,261. And those total expenses, the increase you can see there is all the budgets that I reviewed with you this evening. I want to give a caveat. We are not through all the expenses. This is how we take the budget section by section. So the total expenditures you see there does not include any new personnel request. We have yet to review the special education curriculum and maintenance budgets, so if they are requesting any increases, that is not included in as well. But they will be reviewed at the next budget meeting, and if they are asking for an increase in expenses, you'll see that amount go up. But where are we at to date? So if you look at the gray line item, the service deficit, if we would raise taxes to the index, no new state money. No, yes, correct. No new state money. We are at a deficit of 1.8 million. Or if we don't raise taxes at all, we're at a deficit of about 4.8 million. If we would put in 30% of the governor's budget, raising taxes to the index, we would be a deficit of about $1 million. If we would not raise taxes at all, we would be at a deficit of about $4 million. If we put in 60% of the governor's proposed budget and increase taxes to the index, we would be at a deficit of 168,000 approximately. Or if we didn't increase taxes at all, we would be at about 3.1 million. If we would get 100% of the governor's budget and raise taxes to the index, we would actually be in the good of about 956,000. Or if we didn't raise taxes at all, we would be in a deficit of about $2 million.
So just so the board is clear, this does not include personnel. So there's going to be some shifting with those ESSER positions, but there's also increased needs across special ed and other areas that we're looking to incrementally get ourselves in certain departments where they need to be. Okay, so it's a little bit of a shell game, and there's some pieces on the board that we're going to be moving around and coming back to you. So this is kind of like the best case scenarios for the non-big ticket items, which tend to be personnel. Okay, so we'll be coming back in May with some looks at that personnel, what that looks like, once we've kind of finalized and gone through and prioritized what are must-haves, what are we'd like to haves, and get you what the administrative recommendation is once we've done everything we can do with those ESSER positions, and evaluating every single position that comes up for how we can get the most bang for our buck for our kids with the personnel that we have, and keeping those minimum, doing the minimum increases that we might need.
Christy, one quick question. I'll be super quick. Those columns that shows the deficits depending on the governors, I guess I'll call it orange, blue, green. That is assuming tax increase to the index, right?
Say that again, Levi. I'm so sorry.
Question: the areas that have like the highlighted area, like blue, green.
The ranges?
Yes, that's assuming that's tax increase to the index. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
So the low end is tax increase to the index. The high end is no tax increase at all.
Okay.
So it's just the range.
So we will be coming back with kind of like the radio dials to kind of look at what those different numbers look between the 0 and the 7.1 possibilities. Again, just for the board, we're over that ESSERs. You saw the whole at the beginning of the presentation that we have to kind of navigate on this budget.
So that brings us to our closing remarks. Our next Budget and Finance Committee meeting is set for March 11th at 6 p.m. Is there any other board questions or discussion?
Thank you very much, Christy.
Thanks, Christy.
Well done.
Putting that in my phone right now. All right, so moving into our committee of the whole. First up, we have
It's actually Legos. It's on first. So anytime we have a heavy lift like budget and finance, which may not be that awesome, I do like to counterbalance it by kind of showing the side that makes it worthwhile and why we're here. So we have two groups tonight that are pretty special and have done some pretty amazing things within the district, and are clear examples of kids that are super engaged and are doing the things that are on our profile of a grad. And so, I'm super excited to have them here tonight. So first up, want to introduce Mrs. Sharon Lawrence, high school teacher, but as you can see, some of these kiddos are not in high school, and I'll let her explain all about her wonderful kids.
All right, thank you. So as Mr. August said, I'm Mrs. Lawrence. I do teach physics up here at the high school, but this year I had the pleasure of working with a group of fifth graders and doing the Lego League. So I'm actually they're gonna run through part of their presentation that they did for their Lego League competition and then show you how their robot works. Lego League is a international competition, and we competed at the state level and made it as far as the PA State Eastern Championships is how far we made it. So I'm going to turn this over to the kids, and if you guys want to stand up around your board and tell them a little bit about your robot and what you guys did. Do you want the microphone?
The Ship Lego League is made up of 5th graders from G Blues and the intermediate school. I am Sendon Lawrence.
I am Cooper.
I am Matthew.
I am Addie.
My name is Virginia.
I'm Charlotte.
I'm Parker.
I'm Kirsten.
I'm Josiah.
To start our presentation, we would like to show you our robot and talk about some of its features.
We decided to use a small robot base for 2 reasons. 1, being smaller makes it easier to move around the board without hitting the mission models. 2, we are also able to troubleshoot the robot quickly and add attachments to it easily.
We designed a couple of different attachments to be able to gather up the audience members and the experts. We found that this robot design worked best and was the simplest to take on and off the robot.
You're just showing it. Thank you.
Although these 2 attachments look very simple, we have gone through a number of designs for them and have altered how and where they were connected.
Our strategy was to divide the board in half, a right-hand side and a left-hand side. We identified all of the missions that could be completed by pushing action and tackled those first.
Here is some of our programming code. We found that programming the robot in rotations produced the most accurate results. But we also learned that it was faster to measure the distances with a ruler and then convert it to rotations.
Each of us is in charge of a different mission. You can see our names at the top of the code sheets, but we all help troubleshoot and practice different runs.
We practiced each of our missions a lot. We eventually figured out that we needed to be really careful where we start the robot each time, so we created a cheat sheet to have with us at the table. We definitely learned to be very patient and keep taking it one step at a time.
We are now going to run our robot for you so you can see how it works.
So the competition, they run it in pairs, and at any one time, only 2 kids can be at the table at a time, so you're going to see them switching out. And the goal of the Lego things that you see built is the robot has to interact with them. And so the programming that they've done is stored on the robot. And so once they downloaded the program to the robot, then at the competition they can select their program, and then it runs, and it should run autonomously.
Whoa.
So that goal is to push the stage and rotate it around, and then this pushes in the printing press. They're only allowed to touch the robot whenever it goes off the edge. And so anytime it's running in the board, it's got to run on its own based on the kid's program. delivered to certain spots on the board so that they can attend the music event or attend the film. There's an art theme to this year's competition. So he's attending the concert, and these two are going to the light show, but they've got to turn and avoid that little thing in the middle there. That's okay. And then there's things on the side of the board that have to get delivered to the other side of the board, and so that's what that does. And then the kids had to build something to represent their theme. So their theme was music, which is why they also have the music hats. So they built a Lego music note that has to then get delivered to a certain spot on the board, which is where it's off to now. So it gets delivered there. And then they've got some people who've got to go then look at the art piece in the museum. And so now they've got to deliver those people to the museum. And then some people need to go to the 3D theater and to the stage here in the corner. So that's what these guys are going, and off to the skateboard. And then our last one is the 3D movie, and it's this dragon here that's going to get pushed outward. So there are different attachments you can see the kids putting on depending on which mission they're running. And well done. So that is their competition. The competition itself only have 2.5 minutes to make all that happen. So believe it or not, like they are very, very quickly changing positions and changing attachments to make that happen. Do you guys have any questions for them?
How often does the Lego team meet as a whole? Are they able to kind of collaborate like between G Blues and SACE? Like how often are they meeting?
You guys want to take it?
For practices, we meet every Wednesday, sometimes at the high school here, and other times at G Blues' art room.
And this, can you talk a little bit about Volvo's involvement?
Yeah, so this whole thing was possible, and we definitely want to give a shout out to Volvo. So Volvo is sponsoring the Lego League here in Shippensburg, at least for the next 3 years, and they provided the funding for the registration, the purchase of the robots. They bought the kids their t-shirts. So this has all been funded through the MOU that you guys created with Volvo, I think 2 years ago. So they're funding us for the next 3 years.
So just things you might have heard, coding, problem solving, designing, all things that would be on our profile of a grad that we want kids doing. This is on awesome things. Guys, congratulations on a successful year. Our goal is to ask questions about how can we do this more often, for all of our students. So kudos to you, Mrs. Lawrence. Thank you for your time and coaching of this group.
Anything else you guys, because that's the other part of this competition is like they've got to be able to answer questions on the fly. So anytime we can ask questions, we love it. Yeah. But have you guys enjoyed it? Yes. All right. Are y'all come back next year? Yes. Okay.
Okay. Miss.
Oh yes, we've got plans to expand. So we are hoping to expand this into some more teams. So they're going to recruit some friends and make some more teams.
That was one of my questions, was to see like how many more kids we can get involved in this, because I'm mind blown sitting here watching this. My experience with Legos is when I go to like take my kids to the dentist and I think I'm playing with them and doing well. Like, kudos to you guys. This is awesome. How long did this take to do?
The robot or like the mission models or all of it?
Whole thing.
Since August?
Okay.
Yeah, so we started meeting the first Wednesday of school in
Okay.
August, and we met every Wednesday.
So 1 hour a week since
1 hour
August.
a week since August.
Well, I just think it's super cool. Legos have definitely come a long way since I was a kid, so it's very impressive to see what they're able to do. So,
Thank you so much for coming. We really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Good.
Thank you, guys.
What? Seemed like what that kid was walking around showing us, but I think it didn't mean anything to me.
So next up, we have the presentation from our FFA. So the floor is yours.
Hello everybody, my name is Alana Haynes and I'm currently serving as our FFA chapter president. With me I have the rest of our officer team who will introduce themselves as they come up. Some of you may know what FFA is, but for those who don't, FFA is a national student-led organization that teaches the younger generations about what agriculture is, what it can offer, as well as encourage them to be informed consumers. There are over 900,000 FFA members nationwide. We are excited to be here with you guys, telling you what we have done so far this year and what we've planned for the future. But before we get started, we wanted to invite you all to attend our end of the year banquet, which will be held on May 2nd at the Heritage Restored in Newburgh, Pennsylvania. A formal invitation will be sent out to you guys in the following months. Hi, my name is Jen Kirby, and I'm serving as this year's secretary. This past week, we have participated in National FFA Week with fun activities every day after school, and also acts as service. Monday, we made dog treats and dog toys, and also cat scratchers that will be donated to Cumberland Valley Animal Shelter. On Tuesday, we hosted a game night and also invited our middle school exploratory club to join us. On Wednesday, we had an ice cream social and a movie night. On Thursday, we did a goose chase, which is an online scavenger hunt. On Friday, we went to the Sports Emporium and we played laser tag and drove go-karts. We had a lot of fun this week with all of our activities to celebrate National FFA Week with all of our members. For the rest of the school, we did a spirit week each day. At lunch, we did agriculture trivia for candy. We also raised money with a Kiss the Cow event for the Cumberland Valley Animal Shelter, where we raised over $360. To give appreciation to our teachers, we placed different snacks and candy in the break room every day, as well as a taco bar on Wednesday for their lunch. We greatly appreciate everything our staff does for the FFA. We'd also like to give some appreciation to you. We are learning about different sections of horticulture, and one of those sections is floriculture and floral design.
Thank you very
In
much.
today's horticulture class, we made these bud vases for each one of you. Thank you all so much for allowing us to participate in all of the fun events throughout the year. Again, thank you guys so much.
Hello, I'm Kelsey and I'm proudly serving as this year's Vice President. Towards the end of last year, we were approached by Mr. Stoner from the middle school about starting an exploratory FFA club. We were overjoyed with excitement and immediately said yes. This year, we have done various activities with them, including a plant science lesson focusing on the use of a dichotomous key and how to properly propagate a spider plant. We also had a career development event sampler, which is also known as CDE. CDEs are competitions that are used to test the knowledge you have gained in the classroom and apply it to the careers you could have one day. One of my favorite middle school activities we had was the making of bird feeders, where the students were able to get hands-on experience. I love seeing the students getting excited and involved young. Many of the students have even signed up for a second time and are excited to come to the high school to officially join the FFA. Thank you.
Little short. Hello, my name is Krista Kowick. I am currently the FFA reporter. We have had an amazing opportunities with grants to get new equipment for our agricultural program. 2 of our members have received the Learning by Doing grant. I, Krista Kowick, was one of those students along with Emmy Hoover. We both received a total of $500 to purchase equipment for our supervised agriculture experiences. I could buy cattle clippers to present my cattle at shows better. Emmy was able to get horse physical therapy equipment to kickstart her future career. She was ready to take classes in equine physical therapy as soon as she turned 16. These 2 grants were individually awarded to the students from the FFA and were not through the chapter or school. National FFA grants for growing was $5,000 for vet equipment for our animal science classes. Next, the Mary Jane Taylor grant was $1,000. We were able to buy microscopes and lab equipment for the animal sciences and other applications. The students are able to identify real disease and parasites from real feces just as veterinary technicians do in their career. The PA FFA Foundation Teachers Learning by Doing grant was $1,000 for a laser engraver that was used for ag mechanics class and fundraisers. Additionally, a second PA FFA Foundation Teachers Learning by Doing grant was $1,000 for a livestock scale. The members use the scale to weigh their animals to make sure they are required weight for Shippensburg Fair each summer. Case for Learning Scholarship for Ag Power and Technology curriculum and training was $2,000 from the FFA and $1,000 from the PAAE for Miss Bolts to attend training to bring back to Shippensburg. We use this grant for our ag mechanics and ag class. To complete a community service opportunity, we received a national FFA mini grant for a day of service, $310 to buy supplies for Humane Society toys and treats. The year before, we were able to receive a mini grant day of service for $400 to purchase fabric to make tie blankets for the nursing home. While our Ag and Youth grant was denied, there is an opportunity to apply again in the future. This all depends on the needs of the program.
Good evening. My name is Olivia Davis, and I'm serving as this year's chapter historian. This year at Shippensburg, we have 2 new ag classes, Agribusiness Management and Companion Animal 2. Agribusiness Management is a course that compares agriculture and agribusiness types, organizations, planning and operation, agribusiness inputs and outputs, and sales and marketing. There is an examination of agribusiness involved with post-production processing of agricultural products. This year's agribusiness class created their own business called Jammer Snacks as part of their class. They sold chocolate-covered pretzel rods during the flex period. Companion Animal 2 is a course for students who have taken Companion Animal 1 and wish to continue their knowledge. Students identify and study companion animal characteristics, nutrition, reproduction, housing and equipment, and proper handling techniques. Units covered in this course are careers in the field of companion animal care, lagomorphs, small animals, reptiles, avian, and aquatics. I took Companion Animal 1 and would recommend this class to the recommend Companion Animal 2 to those who like the class.
How's it going, everybody? My name is Mitchell Musser, and I have the honor of being the chaplain and assistant treasurer this year. In May of 2021, we had the grand opening of our greenhouse. Mrs. Beer's project of opening her very own chapter greenhouse started in 2015 with the Monsanto America's Farmers Grow Community Grant, which was about $2,500 towards her goal. She wanted to replace the old, small greenhouse they had used before with one of much higher standards. There were some hiccups along the way, though, with a local greenhouse company she had been working with changed their mind about working with her. She didn't give up though, finding another greenhouse company, Arcadia Glass House, to work with. After a pretty expensive quote, she knew she would need some more funding. Luckily, her FFA members were there to help her through fundraising. They had raised about $43,310 by fall of 2018. They started getting building permits, and by November 2020, construction had started. The building process finished in January of 2021, with the grand opening that May. With the greenhouse, she has been able to better teach her students in her Intro to Horticulture class, where they raise plants. We've also been able to use it for fundraisers, such as our annual poinsettia sale and houseplant sales. We plan on including the greenhouse into our curriculum in the future. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Madeline Dietrich Cochran, and I'm serving as this year's treasurer. This school year, we attended the National FFA Convention. We left on October 31st and returned on November 4th. We spent the first day traveling on a bus with other chapters from the area and visited the Dickinson Cattle Company in Ohio. We had lots of fun getting a tour and learning about how the ranch operates and its different types of cattle. We spent the night in Ohio and made it to Indianapolis on November 1st and spent the day exploring the convention center. We attended the first opening session of the convention. After that, we went to a concert by Lainey Wilson. The concert was lots of fun and one of the highlights of our week. November 2nd, we spent the day at the convention center walking around, exploring the career and college fair. We got to learn about all kinds of different careers in agriculture. After that, we spent the evening bowling and playing laser tag at an arcade with the other chapters from our bus. November 3rd, we got the chance to tour Ozark Fisheries, which is a fish hatchery in Indiana. The tour was very interesting and gave us a look into a part of the ag industry that is not as common. November 4th was our final day, and we spent the morning at the American Degree Ceremony, where we saw our own Kara Haynes receive her American degree. The American degree is the highest degree one can get within the FFA organization. Although it is by far the largest, the National Convention is just one of many conferences and conventions we are able to experience within FFA. We attend many others, such as ACES and SLLC. We are incredibly grateful for all the opportunities that the FFA offers us.
Good evening. My name is Jeremiah Haycock, and I'm currently serving as a Sentinel. During your first year in being an FFA, you will have the opportunity to receive your jacket. Each first-year member has the opportunity to fill out an application to receive their jacket for free. This year at the 2024 Midwinter Convention at the Farm Show, we've had 18 first-year members get their first-year jackets. This is a record for the most first-year members to get their jackets. My personal experience getting the blue jacket opened a new opportunity to make many great things. Putting on my FFA jacket, which I still wear here today, was a moment that I felt like I found my forever home in the Shippensburg FFA. It was cool watching the new members find their forever home in our chapter in chapters around Pennsylvania. FFA members also have the opportunity to get their Keystone degrees. To get a Keystone degree, you have to do the following things. You have to have a supervised agriculture SAE experience project. You have to complete the Greenhand degree and the chapter degrees. You have to have at least 25 hours of community service, participate in at least 15 FFA activities, and demonstrate leadership skills, advocate for agriculture in the FFA. Also, you must have at least 300 hours outside of school or $1,000 invested in your supervised agriculture experience. This year at the Midwinter Convention, we had 3 members get their Keystone degrees.
Thank you guys so much for allowing us to present to you guys. We are so appreciative of everything you've done for us, and we wouldn't be able to go on all of our fun trips without your support. Does anybody have any questions for us?
I have several
Okay.
and comments. I love the FFA program. How many students are we up to in the FFA program?
Last year, our membership at the end of the school year last year was 269. I do not have all the numbers totaled yet because we don't have each marking period. We get Ms. Goldstein get a new set of kids, so I don't have those. I didn't put those numbers in yet, but I'm sure we'll be over. If not at 269, maybe a little above 269 for my.
Is that the number of students taking an ag class of some sort?
That is the number of students taking an ag class and not having any units.
Now, how many actually are in the actual FFA itself?
They're all in FFA because
Okay.
every student who takes an ag class is automatically a member because of affiliate membership.
Okay.
So they're all automatically in the FFA. So they don't all take the opportunities to become. They're not all active members. So I would say we have about 30 or so that are active members. But
that come on a regular basis to meeting. I would say if you stop by down to Mrs. Muir's room, we have a list of membership and the activities that they participated in. That's how our officers actually determine member of the month, is how active the active members are. And on that chart, would you say, I would say there's more than 40. Like it's two papers under 60.
Several years ago, and I don't remember the year, but Pennsylvania went to affiliate membership, and when we went to affiliate membership, everybody who takes an ag class in Pennsylvania is automatically an FFA member.
I know it's your question time, but I
Go ahead, I'll share it with you.
And at the middle school, how many kids would you say were involved?
There are 39 involved in the club this marking period, or this semester. There were more last semester, and there's only 4 repeats, I believe.
Oh, so you had 2 cohorts come through.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. and Mrs. Stoner do a phenomenal job at recruiting the kids from the middle school program, and I know that there's 39, and I can't remember the ones last marking period.
I think it was about 30 last, because I remember the shop being, when they came over to do their bird feeders like Kelsey talked about, I remember the shop and all the hammering of the nails. But it was about 30 last semester as well.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you to you, Mrs. Beers, and you, Ms. Bowles, for continuing to grow the program. I love the plant sale. I'm a huge advocate. Like, I always share the posts, and I'm probably could fund that greenhouse through the plant sale. So thank you all, and thank you for the flowers. And I do just want to comment on you all's and the younger students that were here. I'm so impressed with the public speaking skills. That's not a trade that everyone can master, and you all have done a great job standing in front of people, communicating. It's not easy, but you all have done it very well, so good job.
Yeah, to go with that, I had wrote down the bar was set really high because those 5th graders were incredible, but you all did really well with that. So I do have one question. Well, this is the one that I want to know the most. Can someone explain Kiss the Cow to me?
Yeah. Kiss the Cow fundraiser, I think it was Mary Alice. Okay, so a few years back, we had a FFA member who got involved in a fire, and she was active, and so our chapter wanted to do something to help cover her cost of like her hospital stays and her like skin grafting and everything. So we do a Kiss the Cow, which is exactly what it sounds like. We just have like a bunch of teachers sign up to participate, and at lunches we sit and we have like their names on cups, and the students just donate, and the teachers can get involved too and donate, and they just donate to whatever teacher they want to kiss the cow. And so that year all the money went to her to cover all of her costs. And we go out, in the previous years we've done it, and we go out during like a fire drill setup, and the whole school watches somebody kiss the cow. And this year we are going to donate the money to the animal shelter that we made like the toys and the treats for. And yeah, Mrs. Moose won.
Okay. So
is that a win?
Yes. This year we're doing it a little bit differently so that like the whole school can see it. So our officer team and Madeline's cow is gonna come out with us, and we're gonna video it on channel 74, and then they're gonna play it so you can watch it there.
that's wonderful, because my other question with that was, is there picture evidence of teachers who have kissed cows, and how do I participate to make some of the
Yeah.
teachers that I used to have go out in the parking lot and kiss a cow?
Nomination form.
We could probably get you on the list. We could.
Sounds good. And then the last thing I had, just some of the things you guys said, but I think maybe, Mr. August, the most powerful thing that any of you kids said was Jeremiah. I think that was your name right there in the end. Said, I found my forever home in the FFA. That's pretty amazing. So good job to you guys. Thanks to the administrators for bringing all these kids here, this group and the other group, all the teachers and advisors who do all your work with these kids, because that's what we want.
And I'll just piggyback on that. FFA the overlap of the skills that you learn in that organization, career, the ability to speak, so many skills that you get, from being a part of this organization. And it certainly is a place that kids can find their tribe and find where they fit in. And that's a powerful thing. And it doesn't happen without two really great advisors. So I want to thank you both for the endless commitment of time, effort, and energy you put into the FFA. So thank you.
Any other questions?
None from me.
Good.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
So that concludes our committee of the whole. We'll have a brief intermission before we start our 8 p.m. planning and action meeting. everyone. Welcome back. Calling the Planning and Action meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jim Bard.
Here.
Mr. Mike Carey.
Here.
Mr. Levi Kressler.
Here.
Mr. Darren Donovan. Dr. Nathan Goetz.
Here.
Dr. Michael Lyman.
Here.
Mr. Fred Scott. Mr. Kirk Noggle.
Here.
Mrs. Steph Eberly.
Here.
Mr. Aryan Gaunkar.
Here.
Miss Lily Cow.
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we begin our deliberations this evening, let us once again be reminded of our duty to represent all of the children of this school community, regardless of age, sex, race, or creed, and regardless of need or ability. This meeting is being live streamed and uploaded to the district's YouTube channel. May we now have a moment of silence to reflect on our thoughts, plans, actions on behalf of the students of the Shippensburg Area School District, and may we remember Judy Wyrick, 1962 graduate of Shippensburg High School. Mr. August, are there any changes to the agenda?
No, ma'am.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Carey. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Noggle. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There's no public comment requests, so moving on to reports. Miss Kell.
Thank you. ASVAB testing was conducted in the high school gymnasium on February 14th. The Students for Life Club held a bracelet and button sale on February 21st. On February 23rd, the high school held a career field trip to National Guards Training Center at Fort Indiana Town Gap for students interested in law enforcement in the military. The book club held a book drive from February 8th to February 23rd. Unwanted books of all genres were accepted as donations. A career field trip to Hack Community College was held by the high school on February 23rd for students interested in exploring jobs in industry and other career options. The Shippensburg FFA held an FFA week from February 19th through February 23rd. I will now pass the rest of the report to Mr. Aryan Gaunkar.
Thank you. Shippensburg University held a Math and Computer Science Day today, February 26th, for high school students interested in computer science and mathematics. The Aspiring Teacher Summit will be held at Shippensburg University on March 1st for students interested in the education field. Applications for the Penn State Health and Holy Spirit Healthcare Careers Exploration programs are now available to all juniors. The deadline to apply is February 29th. DNR, DEP, and Ag Career Expo will be held by the PA Department of Environmental Protection for high school students interested in careers related to conservation. The SAT exam will be held at the high school on March 9th. And finally, the Kiss the Cow event will be held soon. All proceeds from donations will benefit the Cumberland Valley Animal Shelter.
Thank you. Moving on to committee reports. Dr. Lyman, do you have that FCCT?
Yeah, sure. It's very quick. There were, I guess it's this week, 8 practical nursing grads will graduate this week from the VOTEC. They are still accepting applicants to that program, so any students that are interested in the practical nursing program there. They had a lot of important visitors over at the center recently. Representative John Joyce and a few others. As Christy mentioned in the budget presentation, they are applying for 2 grants for capital improvement, one for the roof and one maybe, they're not sure yet, but for air handlers.
Transportation?
Yeah, we had a meeting here Thursday. Talked about the fuel costs and the new company WIC we're going with instead of the old company. That all seems to be going pretty smooth. that end of it, I think we get a little better idea where what's coming out and where the money's going and what have you. We also talked about the budget and what have you, as far as the upcoming, which we went over that there on the budget finance committee about they wanting some GPS. We have some couple things in there. Other than that, they do need drivers. They're still looking for drivers, but the meeting was pretty short, and we did get a overview of what Randy's job was, which was kind of interesting, of what all he does and his secretaries and what have you. But other than that, that's about it.
Thank you. Moving on to the curriculum report, Dr. Danette.
Hello all. So what we wanted to present to you today was the way in which the district is identifying and learning gaps and being able to close those gaps. So go ahead to the next slide. So one of the ways, there we go. So one of the ways is thanks to Title I funding, which provides the district with federal funds to pay for reading and math specialists. Those funds are based on the number of students eligible for free and reduced lunch. And I want to make sure we're clear that our Title I reading and math specialists, they're very different from special education teachers. Special education is meant for students with disabilities. The reading specialists and the math specialists provide support for students who are falling behind academically, but are capable of student success. Go ahead. So our reading and math specialists, they provide an evaluation of student skills, small group or individual support. It's based off of research-based instruction. And reading, we've had one of our reading specialists come in and talk with you. It can look like phonics, vocabulary, comprehension, and fluency. And our math specialists can provide support with number sense, place value, computation, and estimations. They do this type of thing by either pushing into the regular classroom to support the classroom teacher, or they pull the child out of the classroom for more focused skill development. Go ahead. So basically a specialist's role is they're identifying the needs, trying to pinpoint exactly where students are struggling and trying to understand why the student's struggling. Then they provide specialized support and they monitor student progress, adjusting their interventions with the goal of catching students up with their Go ahead. So Title I has rules to it that we have to offer these services in addition to the core instruction, whatever the local district provides or what the state requires or the state services. And so their services must be a supplement, so in addition to. And it can't supplant that regular education. So think about it as an ice cream cone. Every child's getting ice cream, regardless of what type of support they need. Every child's getting an ice cream cone. The students who need specialized support, who qualify for these specialists, are getting an extra scoop to satisfy them and to get them back up to where they should be. Go ahead. So how do we decide who qualifies for these services? That's through the screeners. You've heard us talk about Acadience or IXL screeners that can be used to determine where students are performing. And then, again, a reminder that it's not for students that are special education students. Go ahead. So what about the students that aren't 2 years behind? Because a lot of times our reading specialists and our math specialists, they're providing services to kids who are about 2 years or more behind. Students who are only scoring about at the 20th percentile compared to other students. So all of our teachers, all of our grades are striving to provide differentiated instruction. And what that term means is that we break our classrooms into smaller groups based off of what skills and what support students need, and then we adjust our instruction accordingly to meet those student needs. So again, teachers are doing small group instruction, and they're also doing individualized instruction and practice for students. In the 5th grade, we also have after-school math tutoring, and the middle school has an open resource period where students can go down and work with a math specialist or a math coach to be able to get them up to be able to help them address their deficit needs. And then in high school, we have after-school tutoring in multiple subjects. And then we also have summer programs to help students make up those achievement gaps, and that was due to our ESSER funding. Go ahead. And that's pretty much what I wanted to make sure you were aware of, is that yes, we know that we have a systematic way to identify when students are falling behind, and we do have mechanisms in place to help try to get them back up to grade level performance, because as a district we want all of our students to be thriving academically, and we want to make sure that we are able to find those students and get them the services and the support that they need. Questions?
So a lot of the resources that are currently available to students, like to close those gaps, is being funded through the ESSER money, which is no longer going to be available, such as like the tutoring, the interventionists. What is the plan? I know that you're already working on this, like with the limited resources moving forward, what would that look like?
Well, we still would have our reading specialists in our elementary schools that are there to help with reading and language instruction, so that part would continue on. We will be continuing to work with our teachers to be able to provide training on differentiated instruction, and then the other issues we'll need to figure out, and that's, as a board, how do we fund those types of positions, whether it's coaching positions to support our teachers and to help them better meet the needs of students, or whether it's additional positions that if we can afford it.
Yeah, Ms. Everly, just if I could just jump in. Also, if you remember a while back, I talked about the tiers, the 3 tiers that we do with everything. Tier 1 is that what everybody gets. That's kind of like the first ice cream cone. You know, so the question, to answer your question, it's really about strengthening our Tier 1 interventions and being able to make it look a little bit different to allow us to get to those kids. You know, we have a pretty good mechanism for like identifying who needs extra help. It is a matter of when, and so in the time that we have during the day, during regular class, that Tier 1 instruction, it's how do we get better at that Tier 1 instruction and be more targeted for those kids. Tier 2 is Title I, and also the track for special ed and 504 plans. That is the double dip or the double dose that those kids can get. And we have time in our schedule at each of the buildings that we could use to double dip kids. It's just a matter of aligning our schedules and resources to allow that to happen. And some of that intervention, to your point, as I referenced earlier, comes through technology. So a kid will get an individual pathway, identify his weaknesses, and can work at their own pace, at their own level, to close those gaps. And so some of it is driven by technology as part of our programs.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Superintendent's report.
No report tonight, ma'am.
Moving on to the consent agenda. Item 4A is the approval of minutes. 4B, the finance reports. 4C is the disposal of band raincoats. 4D is the donation for the high school band booster raincoats, for the authorization to purchase the raincoats. 4E is the Camp G Blues. 4F is the senior high prom for 2024, dated for April 27th. 4G is the grant approval for Marcia Schmoose to seek approval for the mini grants. 4H is the policies for the second reading and approval. 4I is the Shippensburg Area School District Health and Safety Plan. 4J is the E-rate funding request that administration will recommend approval to request and accept bids to replace our networking equipment last purchased in 2015. 4K is the request for food service management company. The 23-24 school year is the last year of our current contract with Chartwells. 4L is the safe school bollards at the intermediate school. That request came out of the safety and security meeting. 4M is the approval of the freeze drivers and aids. 4N is the personnel for the professional and support staff, several extension of leave requests, resignations. Is there a motion to approve action or consent items A through N?
So moved.
Motion made by Dr. Lyman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Carey. Discussion?
Real quick, one question, the bollards, intermediate school, again, just to verify, like, big balls look like target, right?
So I think it's a mix. I'll defer to.
Yeah, so it's a mixture of big balls like at Target and some planters.
Okay, and then the second thing is colors. Do we pick a color on those? Like, I just, like, reading over the contract, I didn't see anything. I was like, I don't want red, because I hate the color red. I would love to see, like, maroon or gray or something, but.
I believe they did choose a color. I don't have the contract in front of me though, but I'm pretty sure they did.
We'll work to make sure that they
As long as they're not red.
aesthetically pleasing.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to the action agenda. 5A, the Gifted Education Students Field Trip. Administration recommends for Amanda Kirkpatrick, gifted teacher at SAMS, to take 30 gifted students to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. on May 21st. The cost of the trip is $1,324 for the bus and will be paid by the Student Service Department. Is there a motion to approve item 5A?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Carey. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Lyman. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5B, the Shippensburg Intermediate Field Trip to the Pine Grove State Park. The intermediate school is requesting approval to plan for a field trip to the Pine Grove, Furnace, and Laurel Lake on April 12th, 2024. Is there
Second.
Second by Dr. Lyman. Discussion?
So this is not on our list now. If this pilot goes well, do we have to reapprove this a year from now if we do?
So we're hoping to get it on the list depending on how it goes. So this is some special training that those teachers have. We're kind of piloting to see how it goes. To hopefully expand it to more kids.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5C is the Pennsylvania School Breakfast Expansion Grant. Dawn Smith, Director of Dining Services, is seeking approval to apply for and accept funds from the USDA School Breakfast Expansion Grant Program. Awards will range from $5,000 to $10,000 per school. Is there a motion to approve item 5C?
So moved.
Motion made by Dr. Lyman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Carey. Discussion?
God, these grants.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Just a quick note, we did get that. Am I correct, Mrs.?
Yes.
We just recently found out we received
Oh,
it.
great.
Good thing we approved it.
Well, you could have rejected it. That's
And then we would have sent the money back.
bad look for us, though.
Item 5D is the Leadership Development Training. Administration and the Board President will recommend approval of the attached proposal for Leadership Development Training for administrators and board members. Is there a motion to approve item 5D?
So moved.
Motion made by Dr. Lyman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Carey. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 5E is the Superintendent's Leadership Conferences. Administration will recommend approval for the superintendent to attend 2 leadership conferences sponsored by the CAIU. The first is retro approval for the Fall Leadership Retreat held November 1st, 2023 at a total cost of $800. The second is the 2024 CAIU Superintendent's Vocational Director's Spring Leadership, which is March 20th through the 22nd. Is there a motion to approve item 5E?
So moved.
Motion made by Dr. Lyman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Noggle. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5S is the I Attended contract. Administration recommends approval of the attached contract with I Attend Enterprises. Is there a motion to approve item 5F? Motion by Mr. Noggle. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Carey. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5G is the E-rate funding bid for wireless monitoring troubleshooting sensors. Administration recommends approval to request and accept bids to purchase a wireless monitoring troubleshooting sensor. Is there a motion to approve item 5G?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Noggle. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Lyman. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 5H, the Capital Area Pathways to Teaching Partnership Agreement. Administration recommends the approval of the contract with the CAIU pertaining to the Capital Area Pathways to Teaching Partnership Agreement. Is there a motion to approve item 5H?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Carey. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Kressler. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 5I is the 23-24 calendar revision. Administration recommends approval of the revised district calendar to convert the January 12th and September 1st in-service days to Act 80 days. Additionally, June 3rd and June 4th would be in-service days for staff. Is there a motion to approve item 5I?
So moved.
Motion made by Dr. Lyman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Carey. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 5J is the 24-25 school calendar. Administration recommends approval of the attached 24-25 instructional calendar. Is there a motion to approve item 5J?
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Bard. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Noggle. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 5K is the high school gym floor buffer and coat finish. Administration recommends approval of the attached quote from Master Care Flooring to buffer and coat / finish the high school gym floor. Funding for the project will come from the capital maintenance fund balance. Is there a motion to approve item 5K?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Carey. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Noggle. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 5L, resolution of intent to reimburse from bond proceeds for capital project costs. The district's bond counsel, Eckert, Siemens, Sharon, and Malott LLC, has prepared the attached resolution of intent to reimburse from bonds proceeds and general or capital reserves fund used to pay capital project costs for capital projects listed in the attachment titled SASD projects. Is there a motion to approve item 5L?
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Lyman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Kressler. Discussion?
Yeah, could you explain that, Bill, or somebody explain that to me?
Absolutely. So, as we transition to different projects, there are times when we have to pay out money before we do the borrow. This allows us to pay ourselves back from the borrow. So it's just something that we need to have on record, that we're allowing ourselves to pay ourselves back whatever we
From the borrowed money.
right.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 5M is approval to bid the stadium project. Administration recommends a motion for the board to authorize the new athletic stadium at the high school site to proceed to bidding. The scope of work included in the stadium is generally as described in K&W's engineers additional services authorization dated 11/30/22 and as shown on the land development plans dated 12/20/23 and conditionally approved by the borough on January 16th, 2024. The most recent budget was approved by the board on April 24th, 2023 in the amount of $5.6 million. Is there a motion to approve item 5M?
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Bard. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Noggle. Discussion?
If I could just give some board some information. So this is just approval to go out to bid. We still have a vote to accept it. Just from a sunk cost perspective, to get to this point, we have spent $380,000 to get to this point. Okay, so those are sunk costs that we may not be able to recoup all of as we move forward. Okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Any
opposed? All right, moving on to the discussion agenda. Item 6A is expulsion waivers. The parent of the student waive their rights to a formal discipline. 6B, policies for the first reading. Those policies are attached. 6C is the donation for the K&W for the Homes program holiday party. K&W donated 15 personalized gift baskets, each containing a $200 gift card for the district's Homes holiday program. The estimated amount of the donation is $4,500 pursuant to school policy 702.
If I could, just about this, and that's one we see now, and I don't think the other one came directly to the board, came through the foundation. K&W in the past, for the Greyhound Foundation golf tournament last year, they gave us they were a platinum sponsor, whatever that means. I don't know what the dollar amount was, 5,000 maybe. So this is not the first time that, as a good partner, the way I view them, they've put some financial backing into our kids and what we're trying to do. So,
and just so the board's aware, at the Shippensburg Outstanding Program Recognition Program, we're going to be highlighting our Homes program that's coming up in the spring.
Item 6D is the grant approval. Chad Shipp, family consumer science teacher at Shippensburg High School, is seeking to approve and apply for and accept grants from the Keystone Teachers Association through the classroom mini grants. And that purchase they'll be getting ravioli makers for the consumer and science department. 6E is the SAM's 8th grade Law Day field trip. 6F is the Shippensburg FFA banquet to be held at the Heritage Restored. Administration recommends approval for the FFA to hold their banquet on Thursday, May 2nd at the Heritage Restored. That cost of the venue is $250. 6G is the head of custodium. That job description is attached. 6H is the PA principal's contract for the interim assistant principal. Administration recommends approval of the agreement between the Principals Association and the district for interim assistant principal services at the high school for the duration of Blake Fritz's duration leave at a rate of $307 plus admin fees. A copy of that agreement is attached. Item 6I is the middle school chiller maintenance proposal. Administration recommends approval of the proposal from Johnson's Control to change the variable frequency drive coolant in the 2 York chillers at the middle school. The total cost to change the coolant and do a leak test will be $3,495 and will be paid from the maintenance supply and repair account. 6J is the waste management contract for the administration building. Administration recommends approval of a 2-year contract with waste management, and that is after the initial $300 one-time delivery charge is $158.50 and will be paid out of the maintenance budget. 6K is the high school expansion due diligence contract. Administration recommends approval of the agreement with Frederick Siebert and Associates to complete due diligence work for a potential expansion of the high school campus located in the borough of Shippensburg. The purpose of this work is to determine feasibility of the development of a parcel adjacent to the existing campus to identify and maximize the benefit to the school district. The total cost would be $9,000 and be paid for from the future capital project fund balance. So that concludes the discussion agenda, which leads us to the second portion of our citizens' comments regarding non-agenda items. Is there any community member that would like to speak on any non-agenda items? Okay, moving on to board comments. Dr. Lyman?
Oh, wow. No, I just loved the Legos and the FFA. I shouldn't say this, but my only exposure to FFA was Napoleon Dynamite, and that looked way better than Napoleon Dynamite. So congratulations to all those students, and thank you for the flowers and everything. Also, Mamma Mia is this weekend, so come out and see a fun musical. I hear the preacher's really great. And that's all.
Mr. Bard.
None tonight.
Mr. Kressler.
Yeah, one, do we happen to have any update on the grant on the parent loop yet?
So I've received some information that we're going to hear by the end of March. As far as the total number, that's still getting haggled out. I am feeling very confident that we are going to get support from Senator Mastriano's office and Representative Urban's office as well. So thanks to all the board members that put in legwork to talk with those individuals in their offices. You know, I'm pretty confident that we're going to get something towards that project.
All right, that's one. Two is I missed it when we were going through the discussion agenda, but the law day that I saw on there, not to backtrack, pretty cool idea. I think like that's something that me, like as an 8th grader, I would have been totally interested in to go be a part of that whole civic duty process. So I hopefully, you know, that expands and it blows up and we can add more kids to that and everything. And then I did see there's a poster and essay contest that goes with that. Is there any chance that we could get an update after that happens if any of our students you know, come in first, second, or third, or if they could win one of our kids? I'm so confident that one of our kids is going to win an essay contest, that they could come and present that to us or something. That'd be great.
Okay.
After that, just a couple other comments. Here's one for you. There's 66 days of school left. You know, you see prom listed, then you instantly are like, wow, the school year's almost over. So, you know, the seniors, enjoy your last 66 days. Enjoy it, but don't stop working hard. Outside of that, we had 2 wrestlers that qualified for districts, wrestled this past weekend. I think both kids won their first round match and then suffered setbacks after that. But 2 kids had a really good year. I don't have the information. I know we had some girls who placed at sectionals, I think with 2 5th place finishes. I'm not quite sure if 5th place got into districts or not. I'm sorry for not knowing.
I don't believe 5th. Yeah. So this is completely just a guess from what I've heard in a conversation. I think 1 through 4 go for.
Okay. I knew it was 4 for boys. I didn't know if it maybe because there's maybe less girls teams that maybe 5 got in. I didn't see results for that, but either way, girls wrestling, awesome first year, really, really impressive. Spring sports are 1 week from today, so if you're one of those kids that is lagging behind to turn in paperwork, get that stuff in immediately. And then I know I said this earlier, but I just really appreciate the FFA and the 5th grade Lego team, because so many, I don't know what the amount of hours that each of us spend at, like, on board related things, but they tell you it's like 10 hours a month, but at like your PSBA training, it's way more than that.
Yeah, that was a lie.
Yeah, they totally lied to me on that. So it's a lot more than that, and there's a lot of like frustrations that come with it. Like sometimes you're just agitated about things and think about things, and it's whatever. It's adult problems, but seeing kids like we did tonight doing some really cool stuff, that's really what it's all about.
I just got an update from Mrs. Luffy via text. 2 girls, 5th place went to regionals. So
awesome.
There you go.
Awesome.
Thank you, Mrs. Luffy.
But other than that, thanks again for those kids who came and presented tonight during Committee of the Whole. And thanks, Christy, for your presentation tonight and that piece of information with the tax thing that I asked about. I appreciate it.
Mr. Carey.
Well, pretty much ditto. Thoroughly appreciated the presentations tonight. It's good to see the kids thrive in their niches that they find. It's really important. Mrs. Donat as well, I really appreciate your updates. Are very helpful to understand where we're moving forward. And Christy, thank you as always.
Mr. Noggle?
No comment.
And I don't have anything tonight either. So the information date savers policy committee meeting on March 5th at Athletics will be meeting on March 6th, and we'll be meeting again for the Budget and Finance Committee on March 11th. And as Dr. Lyman alluded to, Mamma Mia show dates February 29th, 7 p.m., March 1st, 7 p.m., and March 2nd, 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. And on March 28th, there's an Act 80 day, so students will be getting out 2 hours early.